Harriet with
Oh my gosh.
Harrowings. And
Mhm.
this is, God, now I've got Harriet on the line. And we are talking a little bit about perspectives as she has launched a podcast. Is it going to be every Wednesday, Harriet?
Um, well, is it a pod? It's a yeah, I guess it is a podcast. Yeah, we are aiming for it. Yes.
Well, it's a live conversation.
Yes, it is.
And I
Absolutely.
will allow you to talk a little bit more about that for us as we sort of scrape the surface, as Harrowings tend to do. It's about like tilling up the soil of our creativity, of our imaginations. And I'd love to hear more about what you all got up to. I haven't had a chance to listen to it actually yet. I meant to, but I got all busy.
Well,
And
I
that's why
see
I'm on
that.
the street. Go ahead. All right.
Well, thank you. Well, as I said that I was preparing for this, because you know I was thinking about like what can I say because what can you tell about yourself? It's like a job interview. Like, tell me about yourself, and it also freezes me up a little bit. It always freezes me up a little bit if I hear that. Like, okay, well, in different settings, like, what can I say about myself? And I was thinking, um, why, yeah, why is it important? As I just said, that why is it important to come online and give voice to women or to different issues that affect our lives. And um, and I'm thinking now because we don't know it, but we are kind of isolated in our own little worlds, and we don't know it. But those things that kind of interest us, that they do actually interest other people too, and they are wondering about those things probably like we are wondering about those things. And So I am just an average person, an overthinker, a woman, 48. I am not making a secret out of it. Just turned 48 a few weeks ago. Um, I'm from Central Eastern Europe. I am Hungarian. And and I do believe that, everything that we do has an effect on us or on those people around us. And I try to be mindful about it. I know that this word has been like keep coming back, being mindful, and um, and there are some other words like becoming, and so for especially for that reason, I'm trying to avoid these words, if that makes any sense. But I reached a time in my life when I actually looked back on it, and um, and I was rethinking, my relationships growing up and what shaped me to become who I am now. Now I am not perfect. Nobody is perfect. So it's like we're always striving perfection. And it's just if we are striving for it, then I think we are prone to be disappointed up to a level anyway. But still, we should. and And so I come from a family where, I mean, do you want to go deep in this now or?
Wherever you want to go, I'm interested. I
Yeah,
find
okay.
everybody is very interesting, and let's see where you end up, and I'll see what I can pivot off of because there's a lot here.
Yeah, well, so I wrote a piece yesterday, like a long piece about how my life actually was shaped over time growing up. And that was well, I grew up in a family that we didn't have much. I mentioned that earlier. But a thing that also affected me hugely was two people's, especially behavior or relation to me and to each other and to the whole of the family settings. And one of them was my father, who had a huge impact on me, whose actions have a huge impact on the whole of the family. And the other one was my maternal grandmother. who was a matriarch of the family, and what she said that went.
Right.
So she was expecting that to happen. Most of the time, I didn't buy it. At the beginning, I did, but um, so there were conflicts, constant conflicts, and one thing was that my dad. I don't know how he got into this drinking, but
Right.
he had developed alcoholism or got addicted to alcohol, and then he did pretty well for I think a long time, as long as he could. But then once they got married with my mom, who I think was, must have been somewhat aware of it. Uh, I don't know how blind love can make somebody. Um, but then it soon became apparent that he had this issue, and my grandmother didn't take it well. So, um, well, there were things, and so I didn't get that, idyllic childhood growing up where
Mm.
people that they were expected to have an only child to have most of the time. So it was like far from that. Um,
Mm.
and my mom was always in between these like two fires, two forces, my dad and her own mother. And and I loved my dad. I loved my dad. And it's just, it was bad for me to listen to all those things that I heard about him. And in fact, that I don't think that people got to know him much, or the family actually
Mhm.
put an effort in to get to know him,
Right.
who he was behind the alcoholism. So yeah, that shaped hugely my growing up, and then some historic events as well, because so see, the first 12 or so years of my life, we lived on the eastern side of the Iron Curtain, and that meant, I mean, obviously there were people blacklisted. They couldn't, publish books, and they couldn't have art shows, and because of their views, because of their possible connections to the West. So, but for the average guy and the average, woman who work, in factories or company-owned offices, or like they put this aside. And I think that I said I will not touch that topic, but I think that is today's tendency as well. That or if something is sticky, you don't touch it. So they just kind of took
Mm.
advantage of what was um, what was available for them. And then there were like huge benefits for families. Like there were good house loan options, or there was state pension, there was state provided health care for everybody, and good quality health care, good quality education, after school activities, so dance lessons for kids, or it's folk dance, or what is it, the other one called, when you play dance cha-cha-cha and tango, and I don't know what
All right.
else.
Ballroom dancing.
Ballroom dancing,
Right.
exactly. So music lessons. You could have a good life, have vacations at the Hungarian Sea, which is about Lake Balaton, or state-owned companies. They had these um, locations in the mountains where the employees were, able to go to have a week of retreat. Let's put it that way. So I didn't have much of those experiences with my growing up, and most of the time my mother told me that. So thank your father for that, and
Ah.
uh, and I didn't, thank him for that, but so it's like I was in this haze. I didn't really understand what was going on until like later, and then these events came, like the Iron Curtain fell, and companies, collapsed because they lost their what is it? I forgot. I forget words. They are lost their help me out, please.
Well,
What
is
is
it
it?
the
The people that they
pensions?
buy things from them, basically, the basis of their market, basically,
I see.
the market
So
actually
the
collapsed.
markets collapsed. You're right.
Yeah, because the companies, they normally sold their things to the east, and then
Right.
the Soviet Union
You
couldn't pay
didn't have
anymore.
that. It
So
turned
it was
towards the
like a
west.
chain effect. So most people, they got unemployed, and so they were like, okay, what are we gonna do now?
Mm,
And I grew up. I was in my early teens in that time period, and so it was like a lot of hardship, and some bad decisions from my father's side, and the constant stirring of the pot from my grandmother, and
right.
then the expectations that she had her own views of like how a woman should be, and what kind of life and manners someone should have, and
Hmm.
so this all resulted in how I think, and so I had a lot of. I was always torn in between. Um,
Right.
Not so much about between my parents, but I was trying to see both sides. And as an only child, I had a lot of time by myself, and I was thinking a lot. And it's like I'm an overthinker. I always like there is something going on, and I go like
Right.
different scenarios. Like, so what could be the reason why this or that is happening or not happening?
Mm,
So and then what caused me for like going live, it was just, I guess, that kind of not last drop, but there is always a last drop, because like the copies always keep filling up, and then there is a last drop and it overflows, and I mean, at least with me. And then I felt that I needed to do something, and what it is, I don't know. I mean, we're just going by the ideas, that okay, so let's discuss that, because women's voices can be heard. That can be heard if you listen. Then there are different organizations, and but it's kind of maybe not getting that much publicity.
well,
I don't
hopefully this
know.
will give it a little bit more. My idea is that women's perspectives need to be amplified, and a lot of my guests are female, though I have a mix, guys and
Mhm.
gals. But I do think that women's voices have not been heard as strongly. I think that living in a patriarchal society, as we've been doing since the Western world sort of formed itself, has had some really negative consequences, to be frank, on the big scale. And on the smaller scale, what you're talking about being caught in a situation where your father had problems with addiction, in this case, alcoholism. And I've had that experience myself as the alcoholic. I have not had any children, but I have had children in my life at different points, where the girl I may be dating has children, and then I'm out of it. And whether that was driven by the alcoholism or circumstances with their mother, I'm I feel a tremendous sense of loss, and also that, that the damage that can be done to us as we go growing up. Nobody has a perfect set of parents, right? But we all have these battle scars that by the time we get up into our age bracket, and you're quite a bit younger than I am now, but when I was 48, let me see if I can bring myself back there. Actually, I guess I was married by then about 3 years to my second wife. And I was working through some of the same problems. I was having slips, as they call them. Um, and that affected the trust within that relationship. So these things can really, and we have to navigate those things. Um, being human, I'm going to have flaws. I'm going to slip up here and there. But these days, I've been sober now a solid 10 years, since September 11th, 2015, which is great. But I still have that personality that wants what it wants when it wants it, that can be irresponsible. So, does that sound familiar? Um, and what I'm hearing you talk about is that you suffered the consequences of adults you were dependent on them for guidance, right? And yet they had their own baggage and it gets intergenerationally visited. So when we talk about it, we have an opportunity to put it out into the air and maybe heal it. What do you think?
Well, that's the goal because we cannot just be like constantly down and
All right.
feel like crying about stuff that cannot change and we cannot change anyway. So it's like, what's the point? I mean, um I told about it,
Hmm.
um, and why do I talk about it? It's because I know about myself that you can tell me things that I haven't experienced, and I can maybe like try to imagine what it would be like, but I cannot really understand. And so if we stay quiet, I can get pretty close. So at least I have like an inkling, they say, right?
Right.
But if I stay quiet, and I don't talk about this, like how this affected my life, then those around me have no clue. They think that, oh, everything is fine and rosy, and they just don't understand it, why I get aggravated sometimes, like because there are these jerk reactions to certain words or certain situations that I can't really well, there's a fly or something. Uh, that I cannot really control. I try, but they are like automatic reactions. So like they are triggered, A- and that is because I went through certain um, events periodically so often in my life that I developed a sort of a reaction to it,
An automatic reaction to
automatic
trigger.
reaction to
Right.
it, and now I don't even think about it, and that's how I react. And now I try to unlearn it.
Yeah.
But the thing is that um, I do believe that I only can experience what I experience, and you cannot experience what I do. You can just imagine it or have like a picture built in your head
An impression.
based on what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Yes, so it's like it's always the human perspective and not so much about women's or men. It depends on um, who you are or who you identify as. So yeah, that's my take on it.
That reminds me of a thing that I said one time to a friend of mine. We were approaching the top of the stairs and going into a meeting, actually. And she didn't recognize me right off. She said, "Oh, I didn't recognize, or I didn't see you there." And I said, "Yes, it's difficult to see other people." And she said, "I'll have to think about that," which made me realize she had heard me, which was I was saying something, it was sort of a loaded statement. It's difficult to see anybody else. What I see when I talk to you, for instance, or anybody really, I see my projection onto that person. I'm taking in the information you're giving me, and I'm running that against all of the different experiences I've had in my life of other people. I'm saying, oh, this person reminds me of that person. This probably is the pattern that I picked up before. We are pattern recognizing or pattern finding and detecting primates, and it's important that we do that. I like to talk a lot about how I'm a primate, right? I'm running around here in this animal that's related to monkeys, which I was very distressed to find that out when I was a child. I wanted us to be canines because I thought my dog was very cool. And then when I
Mhm.
found out that human beings were related to chimpanzees, I thought this was most
I love them.
unrespectable.
I
Disrespect.
love them though. So I don't mind.
Well,
Not one
I'm
bit.
glad you're comfortable being a primate. I'm getting
Yeah.
used to the fact. And, the idea that I am an animal and I've got pattern recognition and then I'm projecting. onto my environment looking for possible threats and opportunities. We have a thing in my business. I was an enterprise architect for many years. Um, SWOT analysis, they call it: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Okay.
So I tend to think in those terms. I try to be aware of my environment. And this one we talked about just before we got on the air here, if that's what it is, on cyberspace, whatever it is. Um, I don't know. I have to remind myself all the time that's the way I see things, but I could be wrong. I think it's a very helpful attitude to have. And as you were talking about your experiences, I was remembering many people who have had similar accents and similar ways of holding themselves. And those people made a great impact on me because they had a certain gravitas that I see in
Mm.
you. So I think
Oh,
that's a strength. And when I'm doing my
yeah.
strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis, I don't know any weaknesses to tell you the truth, but maybe we'll find them out as we get to know each other. That's one conversation at a time. Over
Right.
to you.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's yeah, there is this saying, people say that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I think that is BS.
Yeah, what doesn't kill me will try again.
It's just because, it's just I have this sheer will of survival in me that I am not going to let things, just, kill me, or I'm not going to sink. Is whatever it takes. I'm always going to get through, and then I'm gonna go. It's not no, not big goals. It's just one step at a time, kind of. Like for example, I was extremely nervous last Wednesday. I forgot what the group was called, right? When I started introducing it, and I am nervous now. I mean, I am, but well, whatever. So it's important to talk about these things, although I don't know how structured it is, in a sense of like how focused it is, on what is important, because we are talking about the thing itself, like talking and amplifying the important thing. So, what is the thing that is important? It's always something different, and it depends on each person. So, like, what is important to you might not be important to me at all.
Fair enough. I like that idea because I often think that people should be thinking more about compassion, cooperation, caring for one another, seeing one another, trying to understand one another. And that's a big part of what I'm on about, right? And the idea that we are all potentially sources of outgoing love, that we are radiant beings, that we can, but we also are very destructive. So I have both and thinking in my head. I didn't always. My wife turned me on to it one time because I was laying in bed thinking of whether I was assessing a situation at work, which is always about how people interact, right, on teams. And was I assessing the situation correctly, or did I have my head irretrievably up my backside? And she said, it's not really an either or question. It could be
Yeah,
both and. And I knew I'd married well at that point. Does that follow?
yeah, I understand. Yeah, I mean, I think I do.
And I'm hoping that people value cooperation and collaboration. I'm hoping that people will like what they see when we talk with each other and that they will amplify that signal through the noise of cyberspace so that there can be more cooperation, so more conversations can happen, so people can do things that are constructive as opposed to destructive, that we can take care of the planet. We were talking about primates. I think a lot now because on October 7th, I was supposed to be at the Listener Auditorium seeing Jane Goodall talk, but she died on October 1st.
Oh, okay.
But on Netflix, she left behind her last words,
Yeah,
which after all that time with chimpanzees, she had some insights. And what a beautiful planet it is. So, I hope people go out there and look for that. It's on YouTube, actually, just the clip of her last words part of that. But it's a bigger interview that she did in March, knowing that she had limited time left. She didn't know when she was going to die. She just made this film and said, it'll be aired after I die.
Yeah.
And so it is. Have you seen it yet, by any chance?
Why? So I know the keyword though. I know that the keyword, right?
Okay. Yep.
It's like 4 letters. Starts with H.
Which is,
Hope.
oh, that's right. Hope. Right. That was a big one for her. She's had hope. And I think a lot of us feel hopeless, you know, in the face of the enormity of everything that we're facing. I'm actually sitting here. I don't know if you can see this very well on the
And
camera
beautiful.
by
It
the
reminds me
National.
of St. John's Cathedral in New York City.
Yeah, this one
Yeah.
is the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. And I made it
Mhm.
to the Bishop's Garden because I was having lunch with a friend over at Silver on Wisconsin Avenue. And, we're again doing the same thing we're doing here, talking about the things that really matter, that light us up inside. That's a good segue, actually. What lights you up inside?
Me?
Yeah. Don't mean to
I
put you on
don't
the spot
know.
thing. Well, think about
Yeah.
it. We could investigate it. One of the things that always has lit it up in me was when I got into conversations like this one. I had an opportunity to talk to somebody and get to know them. And I saw, oh, our life courses are very different, but we see a lot of the same things. I think I was talking before we got live about going to the Goethe Institute in Germany.
Mhm.
1994, I went to get my German skills back up. And there were a lot of people from the Eastern Bloc there. The wall had fallen, the
Yeah.
most of the Yugoslavia had broken up. And I was spending a lot of time with a friend from Croatia. He didn't have any English. I didn't have any Serbo-Croat. So we had a common language of German to discuss things over the night. And he was telling me about his service in the Croatian liberation war and losing his brother in that war. And, I just felt a tremendous bond. At the end of it all, I took myself over to Vienna and then on up. I went to Berlin, and he had already gotten to Berlin. He was in a diplomatic school there in the old Eastern section. And spent a night with him. We went over to a Croatian church to see if he could locate any of the family members that he had gone missing and
Mhm.
might have been there. I don't think we found anybody, but we were able to ask around, and people knew these people that he was looking for. It was a very interesting experience, and very open, and I think that's what we need in this world more and more is these conversations that go across boundaries, across time and space, and we've got the technology to do it, which is fantastic. 94 was also when I first got email, and I realized, oh, it doesn't cost anything to send a message to somebody at distance and touch their mind. That's the kind of thing that lights me up inside is that opportunity to maybe make a positive difference or maybe just make a difference. My friend and I at lunch were talking about this, and he said, "Yeah, make a positive effect." And I said, "Or make a negative one." And I started etching the little hot water container off to the edge, thing, just knocking it over the edge and see what'll happen. I want to leave a mark, as I know that my life is temporary. We don't have a great deal of time on earth. Our lives are very short.
Yeah.
So that was another part of what I was talking about when we started out. Over to you.
Y- Well, I was just thinking of my grandmother again and how
Mm,
for her it was always important what you could show up for your time. And for her, it was, what she was actually lacking when she was growing up. She had to work. Um, Very early on, she had to go to work and on the field, had to leave school behind
right.
and go on the fields and hand over her hard earned money to her mother because she had two younger brothers and they needed shoes and needed clothing. And for her, it was very important to have materialistic um, things that she was lacking growing up.
Mm,
So she was born in 1938. So you can imagine that she lived through the Second World War. And she didn't have an easy life growing up, nor as a young adult. She didn't. I wouldn't want to switch places with her for sure. And so I acknowledge that. Um, what was I going to say about the materialistic stuff?
I
Um,
don't know. That's very interesting history. Go ahead. I was going to
yeah,
throw in my mother's history.
and so she looked at things like she looked kind of down on people who couldn't. Yeah, what can you show up for your time? You know, there were two questions like, who do you think you are? And the
I know
other
who I am.
question was like, so what can you show up for your time? So
Yeah.
can you what can you like what is the proof? Or what are you leaving like because I can show up this beautiful house, and I can show a successful son. Um, what can you show? And so I was thinking about that, like what can I because it kind of gets instilled in someone, and so when my mother was asked like, who do you think you are? And then she tried to escape this. And then we got to basically to that agenda thing that I wrote, and there were different points in there about womanhood. Um, and my mom was trying to escape that template or that kind of way of life that she was expected to live.
Mm.
And she got a slap on her face from my grandmother and saying that, hey, um, remember who you are. You are my daughter. You're not going to, go all fancy on me. So, and she, because of her circumstances, abided by the rules. And I, on the other hand, I started thinking, like, okay, so who am I? Because I saw my paternal grandfather being, reading all the time. And my dad was in the books all the time and newspapers and all that. My
Okay.
grandmother wouldn't have a newspaper longer than a day or two, and then she would use it for fire starter.
Mm.
And so, because it's like completely different value systems and ways of thinking, like what was important for one that wasn't important for the other one. One looked down on the other. So it's like constant going at each other, constant
Mm.
being like not in war, but she has so there's a third question, like, or not question, it's a statement that I learned that don't ask stupid questions if you don't want to hear a stupid answer. Like
I've heard that one.
so she asked me a question, and when I answered honestly to her that she didn't like the answer.
Huh?
So but then I'm thinking about it now, like, well, what did she expect to say? Like that I was going to say that, yeah, I like you more than my other grandma because you've been behaving towards me the way you did. I was honest, and then it hurt her. It hurt her. So, well, it's kind of far cry from value systems, but going back to like, what can you show up for your time here, right? I was thinking about it because a few years ago I got hit on the head by a statement, and that's how I put it yesterday.
Oh,
And that statement, not so much about what it said, but it made me realize that how time went so fast, and that how I was about the age my mom was when I left Hungary.
okay.
So, and so 2004 was over 20 years ago. And then 20 years from now, if I live that long, I'm going to be 68 years old, right? So, if I say I'm not a spring chicken now, I'm going to be, I don't know.
What is it? Yeah, I don't
I don't
know.
know. Like, I'm going to be older and
Yes,
wiser.
exactly. Well, we hope.
So
As
hopefully,
long as
yes.
the mind stays intact. It doesn't always happen. You're talking about your grandmother being born in 1938. My mother was born in 1939. I
Mhm.
just went and visited her, and poor dear's memory is not laying down anymore. She's got bits of it though, and it's good that she's taken care of, right? My sisters made sure of that, and value systems you were talking about. My father died, I decided to steward his legacy. That's a big part of what Harrowings is doing here. It's this
Mhm.
publishing arm of this organization I call the Harold B. Gill Foundation, LLC, which preserves and protects the creative work of Harold B. Gill. So there are three of us, my grandfather, father, and me. We over here, we don't have kings so much. I guess you know that. Everyone should know we don't have kings. But we get into those post-numerial things anyway. And that's why my father was Harold Gill Jr. and I'm the third. So I don't know. I think it's kind of funny and strange at the same time to just have the same name coming down the years. They went so far in 1907 when my grandfather was born, before the First World War even. That was January 16th. My father was born on January 16th, 1933, at the same birthday. I missed it by a couple weeks. I had February 4th instead. I was a little late getting out. But the
Yeah.
point is, I guess, about my mother, she was raised in like 18th century conditions by our standards on a farm in North Carolina. They didn't have electricity, they didn't have indoor plumbing.
Mhm.
Um, it was very brutal. They had to leave school to do the harvest. Not too dissimilar from what you experienced. And yes, in World War II, she lost an uncle on Iwo Jima. And, it's just hard for us to imagine that we're that close to those kind of historical things. Hard for me to believe that when I was born, Hitler would have been alive 18 years earlier. I was
Mhm.
born in 1963. That's just 18 years from 1945 when we had the nuclear bombs being dropped that summer on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And just the horrific things that have happened in history, these ripple effects. But yet I think that we could be solving them one conversation at a time. And being able to, like you were saying about the values, about different values. My sister doesn't see the world the way I do necessarily. I don't see the way she does. But we don't have to argue about it. We don't even have to talk. Unfortunately, I think that I would prefer if we had better communications. She apparently doesn't mind that we have very little. Um, It's what it is, and I try to accept everybody just the way they are. That brings me back to another point about what lights me up inside to some extent. When I do die, which is inevitable mostly, although I'm not sure, I might be able to manage immortality. I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm still
Mhm.
trying to dodge the Reaper. I've had some close calls, but so far, so good. Anyhow, what am I gonna say about that? My wife is from Latrobe, Pennsylvania, so we just finished our estate planning, watching what had gone on with my father and his estate and the way that was set up. We decided we better get our estate planning, and so nobody has to worry when we pass away. Everything will just be done in a good, orderly fashion. So almost done. We've got a couple things to complete. But one of the things we're going to do is give at least half of whatever's left, monetarily speaking, of whatever money we haven't burned through our healthcare system, if that's not reformed by then, which it needs to be, I believe. We're going to give it to the Mr. Rogers Foundation. Have you ever heard of Mr. Rogers?
Well, I heard of a Mister Rogers. I don't know if you're thinking of that Mister
Children's
Rogers.
program.
Oh, yeah, okay,
It's
yes.
coming out of Pittsburgh, and
Mhm.
she was raised in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, which was his hometown. So we're going to give half of it to the Mr. Rogers Foundation or institution or whatever they call it, and half of it will go to Seva, which is on my side, the thing I want to send it to. And Seva is the Sanskrit word for service. And what
Mhm.
Seva does is they are particularly focused on unnecessary blindness. After smallpox was eradicated, they got together these people who were involved in that from the UN and other people, and they decided, what are we going to tackle next? And they decided unnecessary blindness would be it. Steve Jobs was behind organizing them, the guy from Apple, and
Mhm.
then they're doing good work. They've restored sight to like over 5 million people who are unnecessarily blind. So I figured that's a way of can you show for your time being here? That's what I could show for it, is the fact that my demise will lead to that, and also we'll probably give our bodies to science so that there's some good can come of that, because once we're done with them, we're done with them. No need to cremate them necessarily, but That's probably what will happen to whatever's left after science has done whatever they can do with me. So, that's the kind of thing that I think is my answer to your question about your grandmother's question. What can you show for it?
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be a materialistic thing. Not at
Exactly.
all. Yeah. So it's I wish for her it was materialistic, but it doesn't have to be. And I was struggling finding like, okay, so I knew what I did up until like 15 years ago, but
Uh-huh.
then what did I accomplish since then? And I didn't think of, family as an accomplishment
It is.
because that is a duty, right?
Oh, I see.
It's well, not a duty, but in a way, like, um, a woman's place in a household. And so, like, if someone was gonna say to me that my place is in the kitchen, I would, I don't know, kick them probably, or I don't know what I would do. But because I wouldn't, I believe that I know for myself that washing dishes and mopping floors was never enough for me. So I always wanted to use something that I thought I have in here, in a way, in one way or another. And so I was struggling when I was trying to figure out what was that thing. What so no, not struggling. I was more like panicking that so I cannot show up anything for this time. Like I haven't done anything outstanding, just some
Mm,
average stuff, Because before that, okay, I achieved my dream. I came here. I went back home because my dad got sick,
oh,
and
see.
I went back home. And then I realized that I can't fit in anymore. Not that I could fit in before, but I could fit in less even after. And they expected the same old person come back after 3 years, like nothing happened because kind of time stood still for them.
I see.
So for them, it was like the same environment, everything was the same while I had changed environments. I moved through different places, seeing different people's lives, and that had effects on me. And when I went back, the biggest thing that I didn't want to lose was the English, that because I always loved the English language, and I didn't want to go back and start working in a job where I that my knowledge would go passive again. So I was specifically looking for positions where I could use English on a daily basis, but I couldn't find what I found that another person got a job. And so, like in the big fat Greek wedding with 15 pounds and my flight ticket and a living position, I packed my bags and I went over to the UK and started my life over there. So, and then eventually I ended up here again. But so I could account for certain things, for that time period. But then I was like, okay, so what did I do late? So it was that how do I expect other people to um to see all the work, all that a person actually does on a daily basis in everyday life
Uh-huh.
if I don't see my own doings, you
Mm,
know? So that was what is it? It's like an internal problem that I was trying to solve. Um, and then something else happened, and that resulted in me to like give in to the call of my fingertips and write this earlier this year.
oh, good.
And I finished my novella, and then
Oh, great.
I I was thinking that maybe um, if someone read it, just one person,
Uh-huh.
um, that would give hope to that. So that's for letter word, give hope to that one person. That so if this girl, this average nobody from from the Eastern Europe, uh, small town background, from a family like that, could actually do all these things.
Huh?
then I might have a chance too.
So you're going to inspire others in the process.
That was,
Excellent.
and then I got on Substack and realized that my story is nothing special. Like there are just millions of very interesting stories.
There are.
And
And that's one of the reasons for Harrowings, right?
yeah, and and so I kind of put it on the back burner. I was like, okay, so like, what am I talking about here? But then there were these little droplets, and with Anne's post, kind of that's when it was that last drop. That when I said that we have to go online and do something. And I
That's it.
still do believe that by telling our stories, we can actually give another perspective to anybody.
Yeah, I hope. I mean, that's the word, right? Hope. And
Yeah.
then when you said nothing special, it brought back a memory for me because when in my time in Pittsburgh, I was partially working for the Carnegie Museum of Art. We took care of in the conservation department of the Andy Warhol Museum as well. And Andy had said that he wanted to have a television show and he wanted to call it Nothing Special. And I just love that idea, that, and Andy, of course, a lot of people have different opinions of whether that's even art. My wife, in particular, she's very strongly opinionated against getting away with the kind of things that were called art in the period between, say, 1950 and present, because to her, art was something she could not do. But if she saw
Well,
something that she herself could have done, then she doesn't think of it as art.
I just think of that banana being used and
The one taped to
secured
a
on the
wall,
wall. Remember?
right? I do remember that.
It
In
was
fact,
genius, but
there was a thing. I was interviewing Sophie Burnham, who wrote a book in like 1974 called The Art Crowd. And it opens up by talking about a line that was down at the baseboard of an art gallery. And that was the artist's statement. And he was having a terrible fit over someone putting a sculpture in front of it.
Mhm.
And this line was the thing that it was, I don't know. I've seen a lot after all. Working in the Carnegie Museum of Art, we have every year, not every year, every 4 years, they have a thing called the Carnegie International. And I've been having it since 1898, where modern artists are exhibiting their work. So the latest stuff is given a forum there. And I don't know. I just know how it seems to me. I keep coming back to that over and over again. Whenever I find myself, I don't know. I know how it seems to me, and I'll share my perspective. I could be wrong. If you'll share your perspective, and I think that goes back to your, um, whether it's a podcast or whether it's just a go live conversation. What kind of themes did you touch upon in that on last Wednesday or whenever it was?
you
How
are
did it
asking
go?
like what was your contribution?
Sorry,
Or you're asking what was your contribution?
my contribution. I don't know. I was talking
Um,
about what
so
all did you get up to. But you can talk about whatever you want to tell me about it.
um,
I didn't know I
well,
made a contribution.
well, you had a chat with Jennifer, and I followed
Right,
that before we went on online.
right,
But
right now.
I actually maybe missed like 3 or 4 minutes, but then I couldn't just sit still. I was like so nervous, so I had to go and do something else. And but then I watched the recording of it later. And so in there, you said something like how you no how the German needed the happy endings from the American culture,
I don't know if that's actually
and that
true. That
made
could
me
be a
think.
lie.
Mhm.
That could be a lie.
I don't know, but
I
you
think
said
it's
something like
true.
that, and
Yeah.
and then so earlier that day, before actually, like in the morning, I sent messages to Jennifer and Anne, and possibly to I think even Simona too, because we're not actually um, we are not able to have all of us in one group. So I don't know if it is possible to have group chat in Substack, but we had to find a different platform for that.
I
So
see.
anyway, I sent out a message about the idea, and I think I will say that now. So we're going to talk about this time. We're going to talk about fairy tales, realities, and regrets. And what you said was that this about this happy ending that reminded me how in Hungarian tales the tales always end as so they and they lived until they died. They
Right.
live happy until they,
Yes,
so like how realistic, right? That
I
that
remember that.
folk,
Right.
so not happily ever after until they died. And
Yeah, there's
I
another
was like,
one.
okay, so we gotta. It's a really a good idea to discover this. Like, what is reality, And so, what are we feeding these kids with? Like, they're filling their minds with. Like, what are the purpose? And that's another good word. That like, what is the purpose? And I have no idea what is the purpose. Or I had no idea what my purpose was when I started my novella. And then I got, it reminded me of my own way of thinking in my 20s. And I'm not gonna tell because like maybe someone wants to read it. So um, or maybe I should. But the purpose. What is the purpose of these tales? Like we tell tales for little kids, boys, girls, and then you get your um, ideas of like what is a girl or what is a boy should be like. Girls are princesses and boys are princes and or on white horse and they're scaling towers and the girls they are like sleeping after I don't know crickling their fingers or eating bad apple or whatever and so what is the point of teaching these kids including us these tales and then when we grow up knowing all the realities like how life actually works because we experience our lives um this kind of still holding on to those values and those ideals
Uh huh.
and regret that just came up to so we're going to talk about that and Simona has already written a beautiful post.
Okay.
I wrote two versions for the tail part of it. And Anne is working on, um, yeah, Anne says that women must be saved. Yeah. And personal thoughts of womanhood. I'm going backwards. And she
Yeah.
said that she was thinking of the banana too. Um, and Alexei Zaitsev said, do you know Anthony Peake?
Yes,
I
I
don't
saw
know.
that too. I don't know.
I don't know either.
The name's not
So
familiar to me, so I'll look it up when I get back.
so
In
this
fact,
is what
we're
we are
going to have to
going
wrap
to
up pretty soon
dive
because I've
into.
got
Yeah.
7% power. My phone's going to die on us in
Oh,
7% however
yeah.
long it takes that to burn up.
And it's just about an hour we spent on talking.
Is it? Okay, great. And I'm really glad you could join me because it opens up my world, right? To hear other people's stories. And Margaret Atwood said it. Do you know Margaret Atwood? The
No.
Canadian author. She did The Handmaid's Tale. I don't know if you saw the
Oh, okay.
series,
Oh, yeah. I have the book actually. I
among
started
other
reading it.
things.
Yeah.
I first encountered her with a novel called Surfacing when I was in literary critical class or something in Randolph Macon years ago. But anyway, she says in the end, we all become stories. And hopefully
Right.
it's a story worth telling. That's one of the things for me. I mean, I've been on a sort of a random walk. When people ask about my career, I said, well, I've had more of a careen than a career, like a car careening down a hill,
Hmm.
and it's it's what it is. I don't know. I just think it's been interesting, and I'm really lucky. And I was telling a friend of mine, much younger friend, who I really appreciate. This woman does a gratitude list every day, practically, or pretty close. And I do one as well because if she can do it, I can do it. She lost both her brother and her mother to suicide not
Oh,
long back. So she's able to be grateful. I'm able to be grateful. I better keep myself as level as I can on that. Anyway, oh God, now I've lost the thread of what I was talking about and brought her up.
you
But
were talking about your career and
yeah, I
careening.
guess, it was about lucky. It was about, she said she was lucky. And I said, I think I am too. And I think I'm lucky because I think I'm lucky. It's kind of like, Rene Descartes, right? The philosopher said, I think, therefore I am.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I go with, I think, therefore I am, I think.
And the English versions of names is different. So like if you
Yeah.
sometimes it's just like
How do they say it?
Herocleitos or something. It is a completely different pronunciation. So I have to
Right.
like think a little bit
Oh, absolutely. And
what it is.
I think that leaving space for that is very important too. I learned that when I moved to Denmark, and my girlfriend then was Danish. And so she kept slowing me down, saying, you've got to give me time to process what we're talking about. That lasted about a month and a half. And then I got plunged into Danish winter. It was so appropriate. Have you ever been in Denmark in the winter?
No, there are so many places I haven't been to. Yeah,
Well, it
no,
is dark
unfortunately.
and it
Well,
mizzles most of the time because of the Gulf Stream. It doesn't really get so cold and snowy as you might expect, but it gets a lot of mizzle. This mist and drizzle. It's falling all the time. Very gray. The sun comes up at 10 a.m. It goes down at 3 p.m. Yeah.
well,
It just suited my mood so well. Anyway,
well.
I
Thank
should
you
let
very
you
much.
go. But thank you so much for joining, and I hope you can be my guest again sometime, and we can catch up on how I would start watching more closely these dialogues you're having. Anne J. Sharp is one of my paid subscribers. She's off my board of directors, so I don't think she's ever given me any direction. And I know Simona also, and now Jennifer, of course. I ran into her as the everyday behaviorist, and we had that lovely conversation. So thank you so much again.
Well, thank you so much for giving opportunity to talk about all those everyday things, right?
I'll be interested to see what the clips are going to be like.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.